you have any questions, could either unmute your mic. I think I'll put everybody on the mute or send in the chat. And we're going to start. I sent pictures. I don't know if it's easy to read from it, but I sent images on the group. We're going to start with the in Shvach Madim on page Samach Dalet, Siman Kuf Aleph Erev Pesach. Let me just turn on a little extra light. 1 second. Okay. So the halachas of Erev Pesach. So we start with Shachris. Mashkim Beis HaKnesset for Shachris. It says here we go to shul early in the morning for Shachris. I hope we could. And the B'chayrim, the firstborn, also to hear a Maseches. We're going to see later in Gimel and Dalet. We'll talk about that. Later in Dalet. And to be able to eat the chametz while it's still mutter to eat it. This year the Zman is 11:15. Is the end of eating chametz, and 12:18 is the end of when we are allowed to benefit from the chametz, and it has to be sold by then, burnt, etc. We do not say mizmor l'seida during that davening at Pesach and Shachish al Pesach, and not Cholamoid Pesach. So from that morning at Pesach through the entire Pesach, but then Shabbos and Yom Tov we don't say it anyways. We don't say mizmor l'seida. Based the Tanis B'chayrim, B'chayrim misanim at Pesach. Firstborn have to fast at a Pesach, and B'chayr Lav and B'chayr Laim, whether he's a firstborn of the father or firstborn of the mother. In other words, if it's a second marriage, for instance, father already has a son, the mother is the firstborn of the son, then he should fast. Our full Kaihanim Levim have to fast also. Kain Levi. This is a remembrance of the miracle that firstborn was saved during the Makas B'cheres. It is customary that the father fast instead of his son who is a B'cher when he's a child that is under Bar Mitzvah until he grows up. So that means if a father, he's himself not a B'cher firstborn, theoretically he doesn't have to fast. But he has a son who is a firstborn, then the father fasts instead of the son, who is not bar mitzvah yet. Once he becomes bar mitzvah, then the firstborn son will fast, and the father doesn't have to fast anymore. If the B'cher participate in the Sudas Mitzvah, Kegoin Bris Mila, Pidyon Haben Shim Maseches, so Bris, Pidyon Haben, or a Siyum, Yochel Echol B'Sudas HaMitzvah, so the B'cher is allowed to eat at the Sudas Mitzvah. And once he already broke his fast, he already ate at the Sudas Mitzvah, he's allowed to eat all day. When it's he does not have to make up the fast, continue fasting. So bris is a little difficult to schedule, Pidyon Haben as well. So the easiest thing that one can schedule is a siyum. So we're up to Dalet, page Samachay, if you have the copies. So in our days, our generations, the custom is to make a siyum. So we exempt the firstborn through participating into a maseches, which means we do the following. After shachis, the b'cher get together. The fathers who are firstborn and the fathers of the son who are firstborn. They gather in front of the person who's going to make a siyum, and they listen to the siyum. And then there's a sudas mitzvah. You eat at part of the sudas mitzvah. And once that is done, then you're allowed to eat all day. Now, obviously, this year is different because as of now, the plan is that if Mashiach doesn't come, we're not having a public davening in Minyan, and therefore the siyum is going to be a private siyum. So that means the following, that one has to really, you can't hear a siyum over the phone. If you see it through Zoom, it's really far from being ideal. So if somebody's in a situation that they have to make a siyum, or hear a siyum, that is either they are themselves a firstborn or they have a son who is a firstborn, both, then the best thing would be for them to make their own siyum. One of the things that it could be easily done is to finish Pirkei Avos. And you only have to do the 5 chapters of Pirkei Avos. The the 6th chapter of Pirkei Avos is not part of Pirkei Avos technically. It's braisos that were added later. So we study them in the summer, but it's technically not part of the Mishnah's Pirkei Avos. So in order to make a siyum in Pirkei Avos, you could do the 5 prokim of Pirkei Avos that qualifies. And there's a Gemara Tomid, which is 8 pages. You can learn every day a page plus. And what's that? Today is Monday, so if you do every day a page, but next week Wednesday you should be able to finish. That's another option. So there are options that you could do. Make a yon siyum, that is much, much better than relying on a hatter to hear it through Zoom or something like that. That's, these are 2 options that are not so complicated. Pirkei Avos, if you do half a chapter every day now, then you should be finished on time. So we're good. Hey, achilas chametz. Mutar l'echol chametz rak ad shlish hayom shem ameshas manis. We're allowed to eat chametz up to a third of the day, which is 4 hours based on, again, 12 hours of the day, not an hour of 60 minutes, but an hour being a 12th of sunrise to sunset. And we have another hour to enjoy that. And again, it's not an hour of 60 minutes. It's one of those halachic hours. And the same thing, you're allowed to sell it then at the time to the goy during that last hour. But past that time, the chametz is not yours anymore. You're still responsible for it, but you cannot sell it because you don't own it. So own it means since you have nothing you can do with it, you have no benefit whatsoever, you can't sell it, you can enjoy it, there's nothing you can do with it. For all intended purposes, you're not the owner, and therefore you cannot sell it. You have no right to sell it. But that doesn't mean we're not responsible. So selling the chametz should be done before that. And we have up to that time to also burn the chametz. So again, the zmanim, we can look it up, but the zmanim, as far as if I remember correctly, by 11:15 we have to stop eating the chametz, and 12:18 we have to have disposed of all the chametz. Now, you could sell the chametz, meaning you could fill up the shtar and everything else, give permission to the Rav to sell it anytime, because it's just a permission. You're not actually selling the chametz when you sign the paper. It's just a power of attorney, so to speak, a power that you authorize the Rav to sell the chametz on your behalf, and that's going to take place at Erev Pesach on Wednesday. So you could fill it up as soon as possible, as soon as you want. There's no problem with that. And then at the right time, the Rav will sell the chametz. Now, again, this year, chances are we're not going to have the big public burning of the chametz. So you have to figure out on your own how you're going to dispose of the chametz. I'm thinking of 2 options, maybe 3, but 2, let's say. One, which is actually to make a fire. Just keep in mind that afterwards you have to put away the metal container, whichever way, whatever you're going to use in order to burn the chametz, you have to put it away afterwards with the chametz. So, if you're using the regular chametz barbecue, or if you're going to buy a special metal container for that, whatever you're going to do, that keli is going to have hot chametz in it, so you have to dispose of it. Unless you're really, really kosher through fire, but it's hard to ensure 100% of that. So the best thing would be that you put it away with the chametz afterwards. The other option is to flush down the toilet those 10 pieces of bread and everything else you sell. I mean, you could flush down the toilet more than the 10 pieces, but those 10 pieces are something that we definitely are going to have and definitely need to get rid of. So that's something that you have to keep in mind. And that has to be done before 12:18. Vov, also achilas matzah, we're not allowed to eat matzah. Also lechol matzah kolayim, it is forbidden to eat matzah that day of Erev Pesach. Even little children, but they are old enough to understand what the Seder is all about. In other words, you understand a little bit that we were slave and we got freed. So also lachil matzah Erev Pesach, it is also forbidden to give them matzah Erev Pesach. Children that don't really get it, they're too young to understand what this is all about, we are allowed to give them matzah. Now, how to call it? The minhag is that since Purim, we don't eat matzah, but that's a minhag. Some have the minhag to wait since Rosh Chodesh. But this is mamash in halacha that Erev Pesach, you're not allowed to eat matzah. So that's beyond the minhag. That's something that is, we have to be careful. Then there's other things that we don't eat out of Pesach. And I know some people get confused a little bit with that. So this is where it's coming. Modern charesis and matzah. Minagenu, it is our minig. Not to eat from the things that go into the making of the charesis and the making of the morel. From the morning of Erev Pesach until the sandwich of the second day, second night, that is second Seder. Again, anything that's not things that go into the plate. Some people are thinking that anything that goes on the Seder plate, we don't eat. That's not that. Because that would include potatoes, that would include, or onion, that would include the egg. It is not the case. It's only things that go into the charesis and the mortar, which are really 5 ingredients. Charesis are apple, pears, and walnuts. And then the mortar is romaine lettuce and chrein, or horseradish. So these are the 5 things that we don't eat from Erev Pesach in the morning. This year it's going to be Wednesday morning. In other words, from the time you wake up, Erev Pesach Wednesday morning, until the second Seder, when we finish with basically the mortar and the charesis. Once we finish with the mitzvah of it, then we could eat those 5 ingredients. So, to be practical, the Erev Pesach, there's no apples, applesauce, or pears, or walnuts, or whatever it is. If you make the charesis and you have pieces of walnuts that crumble and you want to eat them, you can do it Erev Pesach. So the day before, yeah, not Erev Pesach. There's no applesauce for dessert, no chrein on the fish. By the second meal, by the second Seder, the meal at the second Seder, you could have chrein on your fish, you could have applesauce at the end, or baked pear. That's not a problem. But not from Erev Pesach in the morning until the second sandwich, second koirach, that is the second night. All the other things that are on the plate, potatoes, onion, that's not a problem. Chicken, even though you have chicken egg, you could have that. It's just those 5 ingredients. Again, I'm repeating: the apple, the pear, the walnuts, the lettuce, romaine lettuce, and the chrein, the horseradish. These are 5 things that we don't have from Erev Pesach until the second Seder, koirach, of the second Seder. Yesh nagil lamad b'achilas matzah v'yamishin shel Pesach. I turned the page. I don't know if I sent a copy. I think I did. Yeah, I did. So some have the custom to eat less matzah by Yom Rishon shel Pesach, Chutz, the first day of Pesach, Atzav Etzisrol. So this way, the second Seder, you're going to have it with appetite. So the first lunch, let's say, not to stuff yourself with matzah. So this way comes the night, you have an appetite for the matzah, for the second Seder. Ches, we're going to skip to take the challah out of the matzahs because that's already done for us in the bakery. Tes, asiyas malacha, doing work out of Pesach. From Chatzos and on, I did not check the time, must be around 1:30, but I'm not sure. We are not allowed to do any work that is typically also Chol HaMoed. Somebody does a malacha, it's not looking, we don't look kindly upon it. And the person doesn't see in bracha blessing into that work. But before Chatzos, if the custom in our place that we work, you go to work, it's no problem. The custom is not to go work, then we don't do work all day. That depends on the place. So if there are places that Erev Pesach.
What are you talking about?
Pardon?
Erev Yontif.
Erev Pesach, specific to Pesach.
Erev Pesach, he can't work.
So he says still Chatzos and on. Now again, we're not talking about work in the sense of you turn on the lights. We're talking about mamish going to work. So and again, these are things that does not involve business like buying and selling. You talk about other kind of work that cannot be done Chol HaMoed. So if you're allowed to work Chol HaMoed, whatever you do, then you're also allowed to do it at Pesach in the afternoon. So it's not just anything. You could you could go to the shul and you could turn on the lights and set up the shul and all these things. It's not a problem. You could be cooking in a house. It's not the problem. We're talking about work, going to work if it could be avoided. So then, Erev Pesach, it's recommended not to do that that kind of work. Yud avamut l'saken kli yoshin sheskalka ma'at. You're allowed to repair an old keli that got broken if you need it. So your air conditioning broke. Air conditioning is a big deal, but let's forget the air conditioning. But some other dishes or some things that you need to fix, and you will be allowed to do Chol Hamoed. You're allowed to do Erev Pesach. And Godim Shnikro Mat. You see your clothes need to be mended. They're ripped a little bit. Sewing normally is one of the things you're not allowed to do Chol Hamoed. If you need it for Yom Tov, you're allowed to do that. Tzarech Hamoed. Yud Aleph, Tisperes Rechitzat Villa. Mitzvah L'Adam L'Istab. It's a mitzvah to get a haircut before Yom Tov. Likses Yipernav L'Scharches B'Chamel Yom Tov. Cut the nail and to wash, take a warm shower in honor of Yom Tov. Now, L'Stap Likses Atziparnaim Tzechel Lifnei Chatzois. Coming back to what we said before, we need to take the haircut, cut the nail before Chatzois. If we forgot to cut the nails, we could do the nails even after Chatzois. But to take a haircut, it's only mutter through a goy. A Jew is not allowed to give you a haircut at a Pesach. So since most of us are going to get haircuts at home, so ideally it should be done before Chatzois. Or before that, it could be the day before. You don't have to wait for the last minute, but it is
what's the minimal extent of haircut that's considered to be a haircut?
It depends on how you look at it. I mean, really, it says in some places, if it's more than 30 days, you need a haircut. It's considered to be like wild hair.
But what's the haircut? Like a full head or some full head, or it's just touch-ups, or like what's the haircut?
They say when was it? I forgot the year, but I think it was after Tovshim Ches, after the Rebbetzin passed away, and the Rebbe was in mourning, and it was more than just a halacha required, but he was in mourning and he didn't take a haircut. The Rebbe's hair was very long. And somebody kind of brought it up to Rebbe's attention, because when somebody's in mourning, you have to tell them, and once somebody makes a comment, then they're allowed to take a haircut. So somebody mentioned it to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, I'm taking a haircut every Friday. But you just snip a little bit. The hair in general was long, but the Rebbe said he cuts a little bit of hair, and that was the extent of what he did every Friday. Because there's also a need to take a haircut before Shabbos. So he would cut a little bit of hair. So if that's the best you can do, that's the best you can do. Because if you have no one at home qualified to cut the hair, then that's the way it is. Keep in mind that we're entering Sfir after that. So really until Shavuos, or maybe this year we could be lenient with Lag Ba'omer, there's no haircut. Normally Lag Ba'omer we hardly allow haircuts, but if you don't have a chance to do it before Yom Tov, before Pesach, it could be done. So you're going into Sfiris. If you didn't have a haircut, you're going to really be long. So something to keep in mind. And again, things are a little bit different this year because of all kind of different circumstances, but that's something that we need to keep in mind. The next page, and I think I only made a copy of Eruv Tavshilin, just a little piece of a page. So this year, we have to make an Eruv Tavshilin, because we're going straight from Yom Tov into Shabbos. So page Samech Zayin, Semen Tes Zayin, Eruv Tavshilin. If the first days of Pesach fall Thursday, Friday, which is this year, Eruv Tavshilin Erev Pesach, we'll have to make an Eruv Tavshilin Erev Pesach, in order an Atzar of Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is not a problem because Yom Tov will be Thursday and Friday is not Yom Tov. But for us, Atzar of Eretz Yisrael, on Yom Tov, Friday, we need to be prepared for Shabbos. So we need to make the Eruv Tavshilin properly. Now, let's see. I don't know if I made I didn't. I thought he was going into more details, so I didn't go into the details of that. But I think it's. So I'm going to read it. You could find it on the Chabad.org also, but I'm going to prepare it also, like read it, how to do it. 1 second, let me go to the page. Okay, Kuf Chav Zayin. All right. So, Erev Tafshilin. So, Chachamim made, if you happen to have I didn't send pictures, it's on page Kuf Mem, the halachas of Erev Tafshilin, if you have a Shemach Mayadim, and the halachas of Pesach. So the Chachamim made it a rule that you can't prepare from one day of Yom Tov to the next, which is every Yom Tov. So for instance, this year, Wednesday night, Thursday is the first day of Yom Tov. You can't prepare for Thursday night or Friday because that's the second day of Yom Tov. So you can't prepare a Thursday afternoon for Thursday night for the Seder, for instance, or on Thursday for Friday. You're not allowed to start cooking and so on. Now, obviously, when it's Friday, you have a problem going into Shabbos. You have to prepare. You have no choice. So they said, if you make an Eruv, if you do something special, then we allow it. So that's the Eruv. What's the idea of the Eruv? The idea of the Eruv is you already have the foundation of your meal. The meal is already ready, and you're just adding on to what you prepared. What is the meal? So all year you could take a challah. This Pesach we take a matzah, and something else that was cooked. A piece of chicken, a piece of fish, an egg. That's something that you cooked, and that is the foundation of your meal, and then you're adding on to that. So you take something that has the shir of kabeya, which is 2 kazesim, about 2 ounces of food, and you take a matzah. The kabeya is for the bread, so the matzah is fine. Then you take a kazais of food, something that was cooked or baked, but not something that is eaten raw, not an apple. It has to be something that was already cooked or baked, and ideally should be something choshev like meat or fish. And you said the bracha asher kiddush in the siddur, asher kiddush in Agada also, asher kiddushonu b'mizvesa v'tzivanu al mitzvahs eruv. And then there's a paragraph that you say, and the paragraph essentially it's also printed in siddur, but the idea is that with this, the eruv, I'll be allowed to bake, to cook, to put aside like in a cholent, to put aside to warm, slow cook, to light a candle, and to do everything that I need from Yom Tov to Shabbos, for me and for all the Yidden who live in the city. So that's the eruv that we have to make, and we all have to make it. It's not just one person for the city. And we put that aside, and we're going to live it until Shabbos. It cannot be eaten until Shabbos. It's very important that it remains there until Shabbos, because again, that's the foundation of my Shabbos meal. So I can't eat it on Thursday or Friday, because then I don't have my meal for Shabbos. I have to make sure that the matzah and the food remains there, available until Shabbos. So the matzah doesn't have to be refrigerated. If you're putting your egg, your chicken, or your fish, or your meat, whatever it is, back in the fridge, make sure you put it in a bag, or you make a mark. People know not to eat it. One of the kids is going to be hungry and eat it. You don't want that to happen. Now, if somebody forgets and they realize when it's ben hashmoshes already, which means it's already the 18 minutes past, it's already sunset, but it's not the night yet, of Wednesday night. So you're allowed to make the eruv until the night. So again, I don't know the time, but let's say 7:35 was going to be Shkia next week, something like that, 7:40. So from 7:40 until about 8 or 5, something like that. Again, and the times are not exact. Then you're allowed to make the eruv, even though it's already pashkia, you're allowed to do it. That's fine. However, if you didn't have in Ma'ariv, so it's still the day. If the day passed already, now it was the night already, and you realize you forgot to make a eruv tafshilin, so then you could do it on Wednesday. I'm sorry, not Wednesday. Wednesday is that of Yom Tov. On Thursday, and you do the eruv, but then you have to add something. You're adding the following. If today, and you could say it in English, if today, Thursday, is Yom Tov, that means Minat Torah, Friday is not Yom Tov. So really, technically, I would be allowed to cook on Friday for Shabbos because Minat Torah, it's not Yom Tov. So I don't need an eruv. If today, Friday is the real Yom Tov Minat Torah, then Thursday is not Yom Tov Minat Torah. So then I could make an eruv. So that's the condition that you're going to make. So you're going to say the bracha, and after saying the bracha al mitzvah eruv, you're going to say that formula that if today is Yom Tov and tomorrow is Chol, I don't need an eruv. And if today is Chol, it's not Yom Tov and tomorrow is Yom Tov, then I'm allowed to. And you said the whole phrase, I'm allowed to cook and bake and all these things as it's printed in the Siddur. So that's something that could be done every Yom Tov, except for Rosh Hashanah, because Rosh Hashanah, it's one long day. which one of the applications of the fact that we said Rosh Hashanah is one long day, it's not 2 Yomim, 2 days, it's one long day, is that you cannot make the Eruv Tafshilin. Okay, so that's something that you have to keep in mind. Next, you have to, on Friday, when you put the things to cook for Shabbos, mostly the cholent, the chicken, and things like that, when Shabbos enters, they have to be cooked, fully cooked, or edible at least. So it doesn't have to be stewed for hours, but it should be ready, eaten. So if you're going to put things in a slow cooker, in a crock pot, you have to make sure that when Shabbos comes, it's already edible and you could enjoy it. Also, if the custom is that the matzah that we set up for the Eruv, we use it for Hamoitzi, not for the Zdorim, because the Zdorim you can't, because you have to have special matzahs and you break them and you eat them, but at least for the lunch and for Friday night, with that is a second matzah, the one that we're not going to eat. That's just a minhag to do, just to add more mitzvahs to that matzah. It's no big deal if you don't do that. What else? Someone forgot to make an Eruv, or he lost Eruv. So he's allowed to cook, but just one pot and light one Shabbos candle, if you forgot. But if comes Friday and you realize you forgot, and you how to call it, and you're going to cook for Friday day, then you could cook a lot of food, more than what you need for Friday, and then you will be able to all the leftovers you could eat after that. Now it is also a thing that the Rav usually has in mind the whole city. So if a person really forgot and there's no other way out, you could rely on the Rav's Eruv and to rely on that. That's not ideal, but that's a possibility. Okay. Now it's also customary that when you make the Eruv, you're called Mezakeh, you give it to somebody. That means you're giving the Eruv to someone else. So before it said a bracha, you take the Eruv, which is the matzah and the food that you're going to have, you give it to somebody, and then they pick it up and they give it to you. Now, really, we're supposed to do that with somebody who's not part of the family. But this year, we're not going to have anybody really not from part of the family, so you could also give it to your wife, and then you do that to a child over bar mitzvah, and that works also. So go back. Yes. Yes.
So if Rav gives like whole community, but if somebody lives, like family member lives in different community, is it okay to keep in mind them if you do it for yourself or no?
You could keep in mind, but normally every person makes their own Erev Tafshilin. So you could keep it in mind for it says the whole city. I guess you could keep in mind people that live in Sunny Isle, let's say, or thing like that. You have in mind for them. Why not? It's a good thing. But normally every person makes their own. It just in case of emergency, we rely on the one that somebody made for the whole community. Okay. Going to go to page Ein Aleph. So, like every Yom Tov, we have to light candles. Okay. And we're going to go now. I'm going to go to Mincha, page Ein Aleph, which is Vav, Tfilas Mincha. So, Ispal Mincha Shalcha, we daven, so that's Wednesday. Wednesday, we daven Mincha of regular days. Chal Yom Tov b'Shabbos. Now, if Yom Tov falls on Shabbos, not the case this year, at least not the first day. The second day is going to be, but not the first day. So then we have to say Eidon Pasach Leo like every Shabbos. Now this year, Friday is going to be Yom Tov already. We don't say Hoide, we just say Pasach Leo. So we're going to say Pasach Leo, then Korbanos, and then Mincha. That's for Friday. Now, for Wednesday, it's just a regular Mincha. So we say regular Mincha of the weekday. Then Zayin, we have to say Korban Pesach. Acher Mincha Lifnei Ashkiya. So after Mincha, but before Shkia. So when you daven Mincha, try to save yourself a few minutes early, so you have time to say Korban Pesach before Shkia. So we say it's printed in Siddur, it's printed in Haggadah. You say Korban Pesach. You should read it really on time. So this way, the reading of it should be counted as bringing of the korban. You should have in mind or worry about the destruction of Beis Hamikdash. And daven to Hashem that Hashem should build the Beis Hamikdash. Ches Arvis. So Mispal Marvis says daven Ma'ariv at night. If Yom Tov falls during the weekday, which is the case this year, we start from Shir HaMailos. If it falls on Shabbos, we start Mizmor LeDavid. Now, which is what we're going to do Friday night. It's not Yom Tov, but we're going from Yom Tov to Shabbos. So this Friday night, Friday night of Chol HaMoed Pesach, really, we're going to start from Mizmor LeDavid, which is right before Al-Chadayri. We daven the Shmones of Yom Tov. Well, for Shabbos, we said the Esafas for Shabbos, which is not the case for this year. Hallel. After Shmones, before Kaddish, but we're going to be davening at home, so it's going to be right after Shmones. We said the entire Hallel, with a bracha at the beginning and a bracha at the end. Eretz Yisrael below Rishon Shal Pesach, and Eretz Yisrael only the first night of Pesach. Chutz La'aretz gam below Sheni, Chutz La'aretz, which is for us, also the second night. So Wednesday night and Thursday night, we're going to daven Ma'ariv, Shmoneh Esrei of Yom Tov, and after Shmoneh Esrei, Hallel, the entire Hallel, with a bracha at the beginning and a bracha at the end. I'm going to skip Yud because it's for Shabbos. It's not the case. Yud Aleph. Sfira Blol. Sheni, remember the second night of Pesach, you have to start counting Sfira. The second night of Pesach, we count Sfira. Before the second Seder, Ma'ariv. Yud Beis, which tells us that we have to start the Seder right away. That shouldn't be a problem this year because we have not much else to do. Okay, and then the table should be ready and so on. Let's see if I send the next page. Yeah, I did that also. So, base, page Ayin Gimel. It's a good thing to have a lot of beautiful dishes the night of Pesach. Even things not necessarily needed for the table. You put a lot of nice silverware or things like that, beautiful things, even if they may not be needed, it's a sign of wealth and freedom and so on. Yain v'kaisas, the wine and the cups. Mitzvah lachzach yain adam lar b'kaisas. It's a mitzvah to look for red wine for the 4 cups. Imen alovan meshuvachim, unless you have white, which is better. Shem sheyain adam choshev yes, because red is more choshev. V'hikam ish bezechel adam yal yisrael shchotam par. And also the red reminds us, Rahman al-Tznan, of the blood of the Jewish children that were murdered by Parah. Yochin cases from the Kiddush, you should have nice cups for Kiddush. Mahadrim bechem megivia kesa for cases, those are schuches, levana, shem zekel levan veu. Those are mahader, either look for silver cups or glass crystal because of zekel levan veu. HaKoises yushlemes b'lishum gimo, the cups should be whole, not dented. Budoch esetiv, rinse well. Chilu chol apochis revis, should have at least a revis of liquid, 86 grams. Zroya. So, our minig is, as we know, take a piece of the chicken neck as zroya. It is customary, we're careful not to eat the zroya afterwards, which means even after Yom Tov, whatever. Okay. What is that? Okay. No, 1 second. Okay. So, we say we're careful not to eat it. All of that to make sure that we don't confuse it with Korban Pesach. That's why we don't eat it also. That's why it's chicken, because chicken was never used as a korban. And the bird, b'chala, was never used as a Korban Pesach. Which is also for the same reason the Friedrich Rebbe had a custom to remove almost all of the flesh from the bone. But you have to leave a little bit. Because if it's just the bone with no meat, that's not called food, and it has to be a food. If you don't have the neck, you could take a wing, you could take the pulke, any other meat, even if this doesn't have a bone in it, any piece of meat, that will be fine. Really, the zroya should be roasted or prepared before Yom Tov. If you forgot to roast it, you don't roast it on Yom Tov. Unless you're going to be eating the next day during the day. Because again, the night of the Seder, we don't eat it. But if you're going to leave it for the next Seder, or next night, also it's less of a tradition. Then you're not allowed to roast it the first night because you're preparing for the next night. The same thing if you're going to roast another one for the second night, then make sure you eat it the second lunch. I'm going to skip to Ches Beya. We have to cook the egg until it becomes hard boil. We put it on the plate together with the shell. And that's zecher for the other carbon chagiga, that they used to bring at the time of the Beis Hamikdash. Then for Moran and Kairach, we have the lettuce and the chrein that we use. And we have to check also Yud, it says you have to check the lettuce and dry all of that before Yom Tov. I'm going to skip around a little bit. The chrein also should be done before Yom Tov, ideally. It gets complicated after Yom Tov. Going to page Ayin Vav, the charoises. So the charoises, the custom is for charoises, we use three things. We mush together apple, apple, pears, and walnuts. Similar to blush in Yiddish, and there's a siman in Yiddish, Rashi Teves shel charoises even, it's even, the stone. Apple, baran and nissen. Apple is apple, baran is the pear, and nissen are nuts. Okay? Now, charoises has to be thick. Zechel teaches avdu ba'avisim Islam as a remembrance of the cement. Before dipping the mortar, so it's not before you actually come to dip the mortar at the seder, you make the charoises a little bit softer with the right wine, which is remember dam, the mark of dam. So up until to that point, the charoises is just those three ingredients. We didn't add any wine in preparing it in the kitchen before. Just the apple, the pears, and the nuts. And as we are going to toivel to dip the mortar, so we take a little bit of the charoises, not all of it, because some of it has to stay dry. That's the one we're going to put in the koirach in the sandwich. So we take a little bit. The Rebbe would put a little bit into his plate, the Kiddush cup plate, because there's wine that's spilled over there. So take a little bit of the mortar in there and put the wine, and then you dip the mortar. When it's going to come to the mortar for the koirach, since it gets in contact with the matzah, we don't want any liquid. As we know, we are very careful. So we're going to use the dry mortar. So we have a question. If the egg is with the shell, yeah, so you peel it by the seder. You peel it by the seder, and usually the custom is to start the meal with that egg of the seder plate. Salt water has to be prepared before. Karpas, as you know, we are taking either a potato or an onion, and I'm going to leave that for now at this point for the seder. A few other things that I want to do, and we send that. I think I sent it in the pages, which is the kaida. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to. So the kaida followed the instruction in the Haggadah. In general, it says that everything in the Haggadah you have to look at in the Haggadah before doing it. So I can't do better than that. Before we do everything, it's always a good thing to remember. Remember when you drink the cup And the matzah, you have to lean on the left. So that's important. And I'm going to some of the things related to davening. So davening on Pesach. The first thing is Krishma, the night of Pesach. So that's already Siman Tes Vav a little bit later. I skipped around. Krishma Shalamita, page Kuf Aleph, if you have it. Siman Tes Vav, Krishma Shalamita. Nagim Alal Rishon Shalah said that the first night of the Seder is customary. Look at Krishma Shalamita. We only said the first paragraph for Shema and Amapil. We don't say anything else for Krishma the first night, only the first night. I said that the second night, even though we do the whole Seder, we said the regular Shema like every Yom Tov. Now, I sent some pages, but I'm going to talk about it outside. Then if there are other things that we need to discuss, ask. But so during the whole Yom Tov Pesach, we say Hallel. The first days of Yom Tov, day 1 and day 2, which is going to be Thursday and Friday, we said the entire Hallel during Yom Tov with the bracha at the beginning and at the end. The other day is Chol HaMoed, which starts from Shabbos. Shabbos Chol HaMoed, and then until the end, including the last days of Yom Tov, Hallel is only half Hallel. Now, if you would be davening with a minyan, officially the custom is that you hear the bracha from the Shlech Tzibur, the Chazan, and then you yoytze. Unofficially, some people say the bracha on their own. But clearly, if you're davening at home and you're by yourself means you don't have a minyan, then you have to say the bracha before and after the Hallel. Even though, again, from Friday of Pesach to Shabbos until the end of Yom Tov, we're going to be saying a half a Hallel. We say bracha at the beginning and at the end. Okay, so that's for Hallel. Okay, also important, the first day of Yom Tov, first day of Pesach, which is going to be Thursday, we are switching to Moed Hatol. Now, Shachis is regular, meaning Shachis is all the way up to Mashiv Baruch Moed Geshem, like we've done all the way now, since Shmini Atzeres. And first day of Yom Tov by Musaf, this is when we start Moed Hatol. Obviously, if you're davening at home, you don't have the whole Chazos Hashatz and the whole Tal and Psichas Oren and all those things. You can sell Psicha at home if you want, but that's not going to go too far. But from Musaf and on, you have to remember to say Moed Hatol. Now, if a person forgot and he said Moed HaGeshem, so, and you remember before you say Mechaya Mesim, the bracha Mechaya Mesim, you have to go back to Ato Gibor. It doesn't help to change right away Moed Hatol. You have to kind of override it. So you go back to the beginning of the bracha, Ato Gibor, then you repeat it as if you're canceling it. You're overriding what you said before. You can't just stop it and repeat the two. You have to go back to the beginning of the bracha. If you remember after you said the bracha Mechaya Mesim already, then you have to go back to the beginning of davening. Okay, so that's something that you have to remember. If you're not sure whether you remember it or not, so up to 30 days, we assume that you did the regular way, which is the winter way, you submitted Geshem. After 30 days, we assume you already got used to it, so we're good. So that's for Moed Hatol. Comes Friday, actually it's not Friday, it's going to be Motzoi Shabbos. When we have a regular tefillah for the first time, regular tefillah of weekdays, so Motzoi Shabbos of Chol HaMoed Pesach, you have to remember to switch to Moed Hatol, which you already did from Thursday morning. Then you have to remember Atachan Antonim, because it's going to be Motzoi Shabbos, or Motzoi Yom Tov, and Motzoi Shabbos. Then you have to remember the same bracha, because we're switching right away, unlike for the winter, when we wait a little bit. Here we're switching right away to the same bracha. And you have to remember Ya'aleh V'Yoveh, Pesach. Ya'aleh V'Yoveh that we say Chol HaMoed, in benching and in Shmoneh Esrei, we take out the words Yom Tov. Now, if you pay attention in the Siddur, it doesn't say the word Yom Tov. In the benching, it does, because the benching is the same. They don't know whether you're benching for Shabbos or Yom Tov, Chol HaMoed, or whatever it is. So they have the full language. So when you are benching Chol HaMoed Pesach, and that includes, the weekdays for Chol HaMoed, you don't mention Yom Tov. It's going to be also Shabbos. So if you're benching Shabbos, Chol Hamoed Pesach, you're going to say Ritzei, you're going to say Yalav Yovei. You don't say Yom Tov. And again, Motzei Yom Tov, Motzei Shabbos this year, we have to remember all those four things. Meiri Datol, Atachan Antonu, just for that night. And then for the rest also, V'sem Brocha and Yalav Yovei. That's true for everything else. Okay. Are there any questions or anything that we need to discuss or people want to ask question? I'm just mentioning that Motzei Shabbos, the Havdalah Motzei Shabbos, right? So Havdalah is going to be, since it's Shabbos, we have a regular Havdalah, and we are using a candle also. It is customary that we don't say the bracha on besamim on Pesach because of the chash of chametz or with the spices. Spices need a reliable kosher Pesach hashgacha. If you happen to have samim kosher Pesach, then you could say the bracha. But usually we don't do it. So one other important things again. Maybe we'll have another class for then Chol Hamoed, I don't know. But last days of Yom Tov, there's no shechianu on Shabbos candles or in Kiddush. So last day of Yom Tov, we're talking about Shvi Shel Pesach, Acher Shel Pesach. When the women light the Shabbos candles, there's no shechianu, and when the men make Kiddush, there's no shechianu. Any questions?
Yes. One question.
Yes. Yeah.
So when need to do the counting of Omer with the family.
Mm-hmm.
So usually we'll do it with the minion first, and then we'll come home and do it with everybody else.
Okay.
So here, is it better to include everybody at the same time, or you can still break it down?
Yeah, you could do everybody together. That's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you.
You could do everybody together. That's no problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Or you could do whatever. I mean, you can't say the bracha twice. You yourself cannot say the bracha twice. But if you could say that whenever you're going to say the bracha, everybody could get together. Or, how do you call it? Or you say the bracha and then you say Oleinu, and then you get everybody whenever everybody's ready. They'll sit together. Okay. Anything else?
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.